Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of Cruel and Beautiful, Eye of the Dragon, and Rabbit Hole. And I finally have a couple of minutes to sit down and talk about Metroid Dread, or really Nintendo in general. But I think like the big thing for me this show, and a big thing for a lot of other fans, was the announcement of Metroid 5. Fuck Prime 4, get that first-person derivative shit out of here. We want more 2D side-scrolling action. We want more Samus Aran in those glorious, maze-like levels, exploring, gathering power-ups, and reaching new areas. We want more of what we've got in games like Metroid Fusion, Super Metroid, and especially Metroid 2 Samus Returns, the 3DS remake that sadly was awfully slept on for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of things I really want to talk about in regard to this specific topic. There's a lot of things to talk about. I couldn't talk about Dread itself, which I am buying day one. I actually still have not seen anything other than the trailer. I didn't bother watching the direct footage. I just saw some of the imagery they showed off. I've seen some like images of like the backgrounds, and like I have the general idea where like it's kind of like a sequel to Fusion, where like you're on the run from these Emmy robots and you have to like avoid them somehow. The implication is that they're a lot more sophisticated than the SAX was, so it seems like a direct sequel to Fusion in more than just a story perspective. It feels like they're really enhancing like the stealth gameplay for this one, and that is something I am really, really excited about, because it's not really something that's been executed in a Metroid-style game really well yet. Fusion like had elements of this, but they're like heavily scripted. It's not like a concept that revolved the entire game around. If Metroid Dread really pulls this off, it could be a really unique entry in the genre, where like having these killer robots after you all the time, like it might completely change the way you approach exploring these maps and exploring these areas, which might completely change the way like the game plays out, rather than like something like Hollow Knight where you just explore until you figure out what you're supposed to do next. Metroid has you on the run essentially from these creatures, so from these robots. It might turn out very, very well. I'm expecting it to be good because like Samus Returns was so great. Okay, let's take a detour for a minute to discuss the elephant in the room. Mercury Steam, right? The developer that seemingly came out of nowhere to develop like a Metroid 2 remake for 3DS has now become a valued partner of Nintendo. Seeing Metroid Dread in action, seeing those visuals, seeing what they're doing with the art style and like the mechanics and how they've like improved things over Samus Returns, which was already spectacular. Mercury Steam is legit amazing. Like, I am legit a fan of this company now because of how they've been handling these Metroid games. Like, they've just done such a spectacular job. Like, there's no denying this, right? Like, Dread is now the most heavily pre-ordered game on Amazon. Number one. You know, the most popular game on E3. By far, female protagonist, by the way, SJWs. Sony is not even going to be able to say that, like, oh yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn was the most popular game with a female lead this year. No, it won't be fucking true, because Samus Aran exists. You parasitic piece of shit. Nobody cares about Aloy. Nobody cares about Horizon Zero Dawn. So yeah, Mercury Steam is doing really, really well. I hope they go on to like become like the next level of games, and Nintendo really gives them a bit more like leeway when it comes to like development of their properties, and like maybe they would do some good work on Star Fox or something else, or maybe a new original IP. I think they have it in them. I think they do have like talented people there who have really, really done a lot to really make really give Metroid a new, unique feel. That was the thing that really impressed me about Samus Returns, was like some of the interesting like quality improvements they had with the aiming and like the melee counter. Like, it was all really, really well executed, and all really, really interesting, and better, right, than what some anything than what some like degenerate 10-year-old fan game could provide, and that is like the thing that kind of really another. I was probably gonna mention this in another video, but I might as well like mention this now, like regarding like another Metroid 2 remake, the game that like so many people, so many desperate pretendos on YouTube and other platforms tried to pretend was like the definitive version of Metroid 2 for all these weird asinine reasons. It's from the fans. They understand Metroid better than Nintendo does. They understand Metroid 2 is supposed to be a horror game. They don't have any of this nonsense. They don't have melee counters. They don't have a boss fight with Ridley at the end. Like, the weird justifications for shitting on Samus Returns in favor of another Metroid 2 remake was laughable, for lack of a better word. Like, it was nothing but blind fanboyism from a group of individuals who desperately wanted to shit on Nintendo for any reason they could, even if it meant like shitting on their own beloved Metroid. Peak Pretendo logic. Like, demand a sequel to a game, demand a new entry to a video game franchise, and then complain when you finally get it. Samus Returns is probably one of my favorite games on 3DS, to be completely honest with you. Not my all-time favorite, like not one of my all-time favorite games by any stretch of the imagination, but to say that I enjoyed that one would be a complete understatement. I thought it looked gorgeous. I thought they did a great job adapting the Game Boy game. I thought they did a lot, like improving the general combat in particular, which is incredibly smooth. Like, the boss fights are the best they've ever been. That final encounter with Ridley might actually be like one of the hardest boss fights I've gone through in any game ever. I can't think of anything that I've done recently that like has blown me away that much. Like, I'm coming out with like boss fights, like some classic Rareware ones, like Gratilda from Banjo-Kazooie. Samus Returns was phenomenal. Like, to suggest otherwise, I think, kind of exposes you as a non-fan, like someone who doesn't care about Metroid, who doesn't respect the franchise, who doesn't respect the developers. I think. And that also can be extended to the damage control that Metroid Dread is currently experiencing, where you have a lot of people on message boards, on YouTube comment sections, desperately trying to downplay the game, right? Like, oh, it's only going to be 5 hours long, it's not going to be worth $60, it took too long to make, it looks cartoony, like, Nintendo, where's Prime 4? Like, it's the same thing over and over and over again from these people, right? Constantly trying to find some reason to hate and despise Nintendo, making stuff up, and I think it's safe to say that like these have to be snoys. They have to be shills. Like, they have to be like individuals interested primarily in downplaying Nintendo success stories. Because I have a very hard time believing that any real fan of Metroid, any real fan of Nintendo, would have any problem with Metroid Dread and how it's shaping up. Because, like, it's a project that we know has been in development for years, since at least 2005. It's something, it's coming from a proven developer. Like, it looks great, it looks very inspired, it looks like it's doing a lot of things, like, new and interesting. It's a 2D game, like, everything seems to be, like, looking very, very positive to us fans, and yet, somehow, some way, there's always people coming up, like, finding excuses to bitch, whine, and complain. You're seeing this with, like, Mario Golf and WarioWare as well, but I think with Metroid, in particular, it's the Snoys are not happy, right, about games like this coming out and becoming successful, because I think it demonstrates very, very well just how one-sided, like, the console war actually is. Like, when you really sit down and talk about games online, when you actually discuss video games with enthusiasts on YouTube, like, you inevitably just have to talk about Nintendo, because you can't get away from their overwhelming, like, high-quality high quality gameplay. Like if you seriously sat down and talked about Hollow Knight, you would have to talk about Metroid at some point or another. And a lot of people like said that Hollow Knight was better than anything that Metroid could put out. No, Samus Returns was better. I'm sure Dread will be better. Super is better. Like, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Like, there's no downplaying Metroid's success and popularity. And with the Switch trajectory the way it is, with Dread's reveal, with everything looking the way it is, I legit think this is probably going to be a game that sells at least 2 million units. And if that happens, this Metroid Dread could theoretically go on to be the best-selling Metroid game ever. Like, Metroidvania games, or Metroid-like games, as we really need to specify, because, like, you know, Castlevania games are more like action RPGs, and Metroid games are more like action-adventure platformers. Like, they're really not the same thing at all. We really need to get rid of the Metroidvania topic. I'm jumping back and forth from topic to topic in this video. I'm sorry, but there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Metroid Dread. So yeah, Metroid-like games. Metroid Dread. Yeah, Metroid-like games are becoming bigger and bigger. Games like Guacamelee, like Hollow Knight, like La Mulana, like you know, Carrion, like there are so many indie devs out there like aping off Metroid's formula. That have like sold like, you know, several million units each, right? And you know, in that environment, like with the king returning, or I guess I should say like the queen returning to her nest, to her alien infested hole, with the queen returning, retaking its crown, like all of those people who have spent their time like trying to pretend Ori is some 10 out of 10 platformer, who have been longing for a Castlevania sequel, who are big fans of like all these other games, they're going to have to play Metroid. And when that happens, you're going to see this thing explode in popularity. Like, this thing is going to be huge. I am really hotly anticipating just how this game is going to be received among the public. I think, generally speaking, it's going to be very, very popular and very, very successful. I don't want to say it's going to sell more than like 3 million copies, but it's very possible. We'll have to see how that turns out. I don't really see. The one thing I think game journals may try to utilize against it is maybe like the visual styles for not being like all that realistic and things like that. I could see like Angry Joe try and come out and say that like, oh, the reason I don't want to play it is because it's a 2D game and it doesn't look like my thing. You're gonna see a lot of people like that, I'm sure. You know, shills, like I said, like Snoys and people like that, industry people. I think in the current year, we're kind of at the point where nobody really cares about graphics anymore. Am I the only one who kind of feels that way? Because I didn't see any like Nintendo Direct game come out this E3 that anybody dismissed for looking too cartoony or not looking super realistic or anything like that. Like it's kind of accepted now these days that like realistic graphics don't necessarily mean a game is better, right? Breath of the Wild kind of proved that with open world games, and that's kind of like trickled down to like other things, especially like mini game collections and sports games and stuff like that. Like I didn't hear anyone like shit talk like WarioWare or Mario Party or Mario Golf. Like it's just, you know, those are just the way the games look, right? But Metroid Dread has this kind of the Mercury Steam style of being like, I don't want to say like pseudo-realistic. It kind of has that like cartoony vibe of like being not entirely photorealistic, but like the characters are like proportioned naturally and reasonably and stuff like that. So what this does is that like it actually makes like the environments and the characters look more striking because they have like a specific design to them. There is an appeal to having a stylized art style is what I'm saying here. And I think you are going to see see people try and say that they're not interested in these designs. They want something more realistic. They just wanted Metroid Prime 4. Nintendo should never have bothered developing this. Like you're gonna see a lot of excuses, I think. Like you are already, right? Like I'm sure there are a lot of people already just trying to say. I know actually. I know there are a lot of people like out there trying to say this game isn't exciting, that they're not into it. They're not. Metroid could have done a lot better, but those people are lying to you. Like I'm not even going to say they're wrong or that like they're shilling or no, they're straight up lying to you. Like they're straight up trying to manipulate you, the gamer, to reject a perfectly fine, exciting new project in favor of getting excited over the next Call of Duty or Horizon Zero Dawn. Fuck those people. Play Metroid.